This guy is the next Thomas Edison. Good morning, I'm Rock 107's Prospector. An Australian inventor claims to have created a pill that will change the smell of farts to something more pleasant, like roses or chocolate. Imagine that. You got to let one rip and then the people gather round to take a whiff. Ooh, lavender. Nice choice, sir. He says you can even give the pill to pets, so if you have a tooting puppy or a flatulent feline, you can give them a little airwick treatment. Now, I'm not sure how it works or even if it works, but they did ask me to do their commercial and hand me a big fat check, so here goes. Sick of clearing the room because you had pork and beans for breakfast? Do you want to kill your husband when he Dutch ovens you?
Ooh, that smell. Can't you smell that smell?
Get a whiff of downwind dandies. Now every time you let one rip, it can smell like chocolate.
I want candy.
Or maybe you're more of a floral person.
Every rose has its thorn.
Friends will be getting closer to get a sniff when you cut the cheese.
Scents and compliments the color of time.
So go ahead, order the cabbage with dinner. No one will mind when you break wind because it will smell divine.
Sugar. Oh, honey, honey.
Downwind dandies available wherever sausage and peppers are sold.
Breaking the news that's already broken. It's time for Prospector's Briefs on Rock 107.
New York City removed its last public payphone. If New York's getting rid of things that are no longer relevant, what about the jets? 1/5 of American workers will leave their job in the next 10 months. Hopefully that includes our entire roster, replied Cincinnati Reds fans. Today is National Brown Bag It Day. If you observe at work today, make sure to put your name on your bag so your coworkers will know who they're stealing from.
Prospector ruins everything, even the news. Tune in tomorrow for Prospector's Briefs on Rock 107.
And eat outside at a restaurant. Great. I love eating on the deck at places. I love the fresh air. I love the warmth of the sun. So much better than freezing my butt off because they got the AC cranked to Antarctica inside the place. Oh, and I love the beach vibe that most of these places create. It beats the hell out of fold-up trays in front of the TV.
And now it's time for another episode of A Few Seconds Inside a Man's Head.
Ugh. She wants to eat on the deck. Great, let's see how many flies can defecate on my burger. Maybe a bird will steal my french fries, or better yet, take a giant white dump on my head. I hate eating outside. We invented shelter for a reason. Get a sweater and deal with the AC.
And that was another episode of A Few Seconds Inside a Man's Head.
Life's pretty tough right now. There's plenty of bad news, but it's not all bad. It's time for the brighter side of Prospector on Rock 107.
Last year, a guy named Josh Swain went on Twitter and jokingly challenged other Joshes to a fight for the rights to that first name. Then there was a big Josh fight event in Nebraska where Joshes showed up and battled out with pool noodles with each other. Well, they did it again this past weekend and they raised a bunch of money for charity. They brought in over $20,000 for a children's hospital in Omaha.
Thanks. We needed that. The brighter side of Prospector on Rock 107.
Years ago, I said I hope it wouldn't become the new normal. It has, and we've talked about that too, but I've kind of just stopped talking about it for a while. I don't think I can do that anymore. I'm Rock 107's Prospector. As you've no doubt heard by now, there was another school shooting yesterday. And look, every single one of these mass shootings is senseless. This one was especially horrific because it happened at an elementary school filled with 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade students. It happened at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas, 90 minutes west of San Antonio. 19 children so far, at least, and 2 adults were killed, but others were seriously hurt. It's possible that number could go higher. At least one of the adults was a teacher. According to reports, an 18-year-old shooter attended a nearby high school. He was wearing body armor during the massacre and was eventually shot and killed by law enforcement at the school while engaging fire with officers. Law enforcement sources in Texas say the shooter had a handgun and an AR-15 with high-capacity magazines. They believe he acted alone. Naturally, this is once again ripped off that Band-Aid on the long-simmering gun debate, with some politicians demanding we act and get something done, others arguing we should stick with the status quo. That's the part I don't understand. You can disagree about what measures we need to do, what we need to try and change in this country, but to say we need to stick with the status quo, this happens far too often here in America. And yeah, occasionally it happens elsewhere in the world. And I know there are gun control laws in stricter countries and that things that doesn't happen. And there are less strict gun control laws in other countries and it doesn't happen there. I don't know the answer. I wish I did. I wish I could wave a magic wand. I wish I could make it all stop. But we got to do something. There are issues in this country. Mental health issues, the way we handle our mental health problems in this country. There are issues with the availability of these mass destruction tools and how easy it is for people who shouldn't have them, clearly shouldn't have them, to get them. And I know it might make me unpopular with some people if I start talking about the fact that we need to restrict who can get things. Something needs to be done. But we got to start doing something. We got to change the culture in this country because it happens far too often. We're killing far too many people. Think about how many mass shooting events have happened in the last week and a half. It's horrific. And the fact that we sit back and do nothing, that's the part that gets me. We do nothing. Each time we talk about it, we're talking about it now. Nothing changes. How do we live with ourselves?
Texting and drinking is never a good idea. We've all done it, and we've all regretted it. The drunken texts you forgot you sent. Prospectors collected them in inTEXTicated on Rock 107.
From area code 248, Wayne County, Michigan. Why the fudge is your husband naked eating string cheese in my guest bedroom? Right down the road in Allentown, area code 610. Are you still passed out in my back seat, or do I need to come find you? And from Arlington, Virginia, area code 703. Yes, with 100% positivity, I can say yes. I do not want you covered in waffles and syrup when I get home.
You hit send, and we hit the floor laughing in inTEXTicated on Rock 107.
Area code 330, Akron, Ohio. My dad just built a flamethrower. You should probably get here. And from Medford, Oregon, area code 541. I just woke up on the 3rd floor, naked in a closet.
Proof that booze and cell phones don't mix. In inTEXTicated on Rock 107.
From the 970 in Durango, Colorado. Man, the amount of drugs being done at a wedding with a bunch of surgeons was disturbing. And from Windsor, Ontario, Canada, area code 519. Did I tell you I'm going on a date? His name is Michael, and we both like dinosaurs and bum fun.
Hey, we found him in your telephone. In inTEXTicated on Rock 107.
Story calls for that. 2 teenage girls were at a train station in northern Japan around 1:30 in the afternoon when one of them thought she saw a guy walking around with a big knife in his hand. So she called cops to report it. She said it was either a knife or a big handsaw. But actually, it was neither of those things. It was something much more harmless. It turned out to be he was just holding an old flip phone. And she's so young, she'd never even seen one before. Her friend, who's a little more worldly, told cops it might have been a phone, but they decided to track the guy down anyway, just in case. They looked through security footage, figured out who he was, and searched his bags, and sure enough, he had an old, outdated flip phone, but no knife or saw. So they let him go. No word on whether it convinced him to finally upgrade to a more modern phone or not.
Nominee number 2.
Police in Louisiana made a bizarre discovery late Saturday night when they came across a house that was abandoned in the middle of a road. The house was on the back of a trailer being hauled by a truck. Police put a photo up on Facebook, and the house looks huge. It doesn't appear to be split up like houses usually are when they're being trucked around, and it was completely blocking both sides of the road. And in its wake was a string of damaged mailboxes, road signs, trees, power lines, and poles. Police arrested the 46-year-old homeowner and an accomplice for criminal damage to property, violating a local ordinance, and obstruction of a highway. They say this was part of an ongoing situation with the homeowner who was told he'd need permits to move a house like that, and he just ignored it and tried to do it on his own. It's unclear what the cops did with the house.
And the winner is
the two men who were arrested after abandoning an entire house in the middle of a roadway. You guys are idiots. And you'll move on to Thursday's Yambag of the Week competition, because Friday we kick off the Rock and Roll 500 and we won't be having it. Stay tuned for more nominees for Prospector's Yambag right here on Rock 107. Listen to Prospector's Prime Cuts podcast. Be sure to catch us live weekdays from 5:30 to 10 a.m. on Rock 107 or online at rock107.com or the Rock 107 app. A free download for your Android or iPhone. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss Prospector's Prime Cuts.